Yeah.
Kept you busy.
Slightly.
Kept all you guys busy. Yeah.
Well, how does it feel to have this done and to know, like, I mean, this is the first thing that is on your Ohio State tenure, and will be the first data point that we sort of have. What does it feel like to have that done?
The best title that I'll ever have is senior advisor, right? I know that's going to end at some point in time, and July 1st it all becomes official as a senior vice president and athletic director. Look, the way I looked at it is what is best for the institution. I mean, anytime you make a decision, you always use that as the filter. What is best for the program? What's best for the university? So you knew that there's sort of a weight, if you will, but if you have an organized process, if you talk to as many people as possible, from former players to people in the basketball world to other athletic directors to other coaches that may not be candidates, but you want intel on the landscape, we ended up engaging with close to 50 different coaches, one way, shape, or form, either directly with them or through their agents. Our search firm did a great job. So to validate, again, that you're getting all this intelligence and that you end up at the right place, that just has a great feeling because he's a great fit, he's relatable, he can galvanize all the things that we need to turn on. I mentioned that there's some things that we need to turn on here. And that's not a slight to anybody, it's just where the program has been. It's time to take it to a new level, and that's what he has the wherewithal to do. So all of those things just add to an exciting day.
Last couple of months, we've seen the football program really get a reinvigoration of some NIL dollars, helping it out a lot. Do you expect that now that you have a new head coach for basketball?
Well, again, sort of an added bonus. Somebody asked the question about the Ohio ties in recruiting, and so the added bonus too is the relationships are there, right? And so he can plug right in. To that, he can plug right in, whether it's NIL, whether it's recruiting in the state of Ohio, whether it's roster retention. Those things were added features. And again, based on the timing of all of this, things are popping. Over the weekend, how many jobs came open? Today, the transfer portal. I haven't even checked. How many guys have entered the transfer portal today in college basketball? A lot, whatever that number is. Hundreds, right? Maybe 1,000, right? And so all of that piece of it from a added bonus, again, led us to he's the right guy for all of this. So it all adds up for sure.
Knowing how much talent is on the roster, and you've seen it obviously over the last 8 games, is that a factor for you in seeing like, okay, he's more likely to retain these guys and set himself up for success than maybe some outside hire?
There are certainly things that we have to address to fix, if you will. But as far as culture and roster and chemistry among these guys, we don't have to have a total reset. So that piece of it, the continuity of the roster, is important. And look, guys are going to have to make their own decisions. Guys will have opportunities. Obviously, the last month, everybody's been getting hit up with new opportunities. I'm sure that's taken place, right? And so what he has to do is let's win an NIT championship. We hope we go on a great run. That's a couple weeks away, right, to have that run. And then you sit down and retain the roster and make sure that we have that continuity. So that piece will come together. There may be stuff flying around, but the fact that we're playing, the fact that these guys have great chemistry, I've been really impressed. When I met with a team a couple weeks ago, I've been really impressed with their chemistry and their togetherness, and that's why they're playing better, because they have that. So you want to hold as much of that together, but also knowing that there's going to be new pieces in order to take that next step too.
You said that watching the games, you felt like he outfoxed some head coaches who have been out this longer tactically. I guess, what did you see that gave you that impression, and what about the way the team played stood out?
Yeah, I wasn't breaking down film necessarily, right? But again, you see momentum swings, right? And do you call the right kind of timeout? Do you sub? Do you make a defensive adjustment? Right? He made defensive adjustments to make sure that, hey, let's mix up a zone defense or go back to man-to-man. Playing guys that maybe hadn't played a lot throughout the year, right? And getting more rotation and getting the style of play, like that's coaching, and that's the X's and O's piece. That's the playability piece. And again, freedom of movement within a structure. That's the kind of offense. He's got some offensive efficiency numbers that went way up, during his tenure these last 8 games. You're going to recruit to that and use that as a selling point. So all those pieces, again, does he have the wherewithal long term? you could test that in a short window, knowing that you got to sustain that, and that's what he's going to be built for.
The benefit of just getting to see it up close and personal like that. I don't know where your head was at certain times. Maybe it was always him first. Maybe you were building a hierarchy there, but you got to see him hands-on, up close and personal. How did that swing whatever you were thinking at the time, and maybe thinking about some other people?
You know, I had 2 weeks back in Texas to do a lot of research, talk to a lot of people, and I wanted to make sure that I saw this team in person as much as I could. So I got here for that March 3rd game. I was able to go to some practices. I was able to go to the Big Ten tournament. So I wanted to see in person, and I wanted to really feel and see the chemistry in the locker room. Meeting with the players a couple weeks ago, it was just me and them. And I asked him, what makes a great coach? Tell me what you guys have as expectations, not names or anything like that. And hearing from them and talking to them in person really, again, solidified that we've got to have the right characteristics, because it's about them and it's about making sure we maximize their talent. But seeing that in person, you can't put a price tag on seeing it in person. I couldn't have done this if I just flew in for a weekend and then flew back, so had to be here on the ground.
Ross, for you personally, how has this process, this coaching search, helped you in your transition, kind of throwing you into it, I guess, right away?
I mean, I don't think you ever want to have to do this early, right, in your first couple weeks. And I'm not even the athletic director by title, but it allowed me actually to get to know the place better and faster, maybe in a more unique way, in a unique manner that's untraditional, unorthodox. But that's why I think the way I'm overlapping with Gene in general, where I can observe, I can really be curious, I can ask the right kind of questions without being, threatening, if you will. But then getting to know former players, that's why we're here. Getting to know our athletes quickly through this process, getting to know staff that I'll need in the future, whether it's the HR people, whether it's the contract administration piece, whether it's people in legal counsel on campus. Those relationships got accelerated because we had to deploy, all those resources. So it's unorthodox, but I think a good advantage for me as I go into the spring and summer.
To tip into your memory bank here, this isn't your first rodeo with the mid-season change. Western Kentucky, did that give you any comfort in doing it this time? Like, it kind of worked out. I mean, he got the job, right?
Right.
Did that even come into play, or
we're all a product of our journey and our experiences, good and bad. We learn, we had mistakes, you learn from those. You had good things that happened, you learn from that as well. So, I don't think any situation is necessarily the same. I think in terms of how you can process communication, how you can process a search. I mean, I remember very similar characteristics during that search at Western Kentucky, because we had like 2 months then doing the exact same thing. We actually had a face-to-face meeting with former players back then. We had almost like a town hall meeting. And so I learned that, we need to engage former players. It's their program. Let's hear their feedback. Using a search firm. Again, people think search firms pick candidates for you. No, they filter all the noise. They can call people that you can't call. So those kind of similar characteristics, but the selection piece, not necessarily. It's whoever's the right choice.
And also curious, just kind of maybe oddball here. Ryan Day got promoted. I mean, did anybody say,
look,
it worked?
Ohio State has a track record. Ty Tucker, Ryan Day. I think there's a guy named Fred Taylor that won a national championship. Was he promoted as an assistant?
Yeah.
Who's a historian around here?
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
right.
There's a pretty good track record of that happening here at Ohio State. And so, was that a factor? No. It just tells a great story that this can happen with the right person. It all comes down to who's the right person. Forget all the other stuff. Is he the right person? And that's what we found.
You talked about some things needing to be reinvigorated. I think people could look at it and say, well, you could go up for a big swing, get a big name, and maybe that kind of does it on its own. You obviously decided to stay with that continuity you're talking about. Why can you reinvigorate with Jake?
Personality, connectivity that he already has within the program, the fact that his brother played here, so he knows how to relate to that former player group, that he knows how to relate to the fans. He can galvanize that because he's got the wherewithal. He's not afraid to go out and carry himself, in public. So you could go after a big name, but if it takes them 6 months to figure the place out, This is a massive place. You have to have the wherewithal to understand, okay, football's football here, right? We want basketball to be at a big stage, but to have the demeanor to handle that, he's seen that here. You bring somebody else in, do they have that wherewithal? Do they understand the dynamics? Do they understand that, look, you got to relate to people here. It's not just I'm gonna go coach on, Saturday or Tuesday night and then go back home. No, you have to do all the things that it takes to connect here. Jake has that versus somebody that may not have seen it or relate to that. And then the timing. We could have waited on a lot of people. There's a lot of people that wanted this job. And all those people that we talked to, the 49 coaches, the people that we met with in person, the people that we met with on Zoom, this is an attractive job. But the profile that he checks matches what we need, and he's going to take off.
You talked
Couple
about,
more,
you,
guys.
You,
Couple more.
You talked about the season, selling tickets, things like that. This arena, what have you made of it in the time that you've been here? What can be done when you talk about upgrades and things? What can be done to make this a better arena, a better environment? How can you address the attendance?
This was built in 1998?
25 years.
25. It has great bones. It's actually very clean for the age of the building. And so I think there's a lot of great pockets. I've walked the building a couple times. There's a lot of great pockets to maybe have some new fan experiences, maybe some new premium areas, but also some areas to engage all of our fans. So it's got really good bones and really good characteristics. I think I want to see what we can do maybe with our students. Students provide the energy. For all of us old people, there's some young people over here, but for all of us old people, we need students to be engaged. Can we do more around the student atmosphere? Can we, if this place has 14, 15, 16,000 consistently, it's hard to fill it every game. Let's just face it. But if you can get to a consistent number, it can be a huge home court advantage. So we're going to look at all of those things. We're going to look at some of the bells and whistles that we have. The great thing about the way we're set up, we have business advancement. So there's resources that are produced through concerts and things like that provide then, changes to the building. Infrastructure changes, facility changes. So we have a great model here, and those are all the things that we'll dive into as we move ahead.
Ross, you mentioned all the candidates. How close would you say this was to wanting to wait a little bit longer, or did Jake just wow you?
All of those factors honestly went into it. And again, I always thought this weekend was a huge marker in terms of our search. Who's in the NCAA tournament? Who wants to wait on us? Who do we want to wait on, right? Where's Jake's viability in all of this? Making sure we had those conversations so we knew what he could do and having, deep, in-depth conversations. So we met with him for a couple hours again on Saturday before we pulled the trigger to test that once again. So all of that goes into the equation. Do you want to wait? We could wait it into April. And then we might be standing here with who? With what? With the roster. Did our team play in the NIT? All of those uncertainties were part of the factor that said, if he checks the boxes as far as the profile and has the wherewithal, this is our guy. Let's go.
How important do you think what he does in this tournament now? It's kind of interesting. You got his first game is tomorrow.
Tomorrow night, yeah.
And how, a lot of people said maybe wait till the postseason's done, but why before it?
Right. Again, it's all about, is he the right guy? Are we ready to pull the trigger? So the thing about the NIT, a lot of programs are backing out. To me, this helps create momentum, especially with our roster. It allows the younger guys to play more minutes, meaningful minutes against really good. The NIT is tough. When I was at Texas A&M, we went through a run all the way to the final game. There's some hard games in there. But if you can play as long as possible, that's only going to help your continuity. That's only going to help recruiting. One of the things about the Big Ten, right? People criticize the Big Ten for style of play. What has Jake done? He's opened it up. It gives more examples of open style of play, which then helps in the portal, which then helps in recruiting. So to me, the added bonus is playing as long as we can under Jake's leadership.
He didn't win like this. He had to win like this, right? At the end of the year.
Look, Jake was, in my mind, Jake had to be a candidate no matter how many games he won or what. Because again, does he have the wherewithal, right? We saw him in action perform successfully. If he can keep a 6-2 average, that's pretty good, isn't it? Over like 35 games, what would that average out to be?
Like at least 26 games.
That'd be pretty good. If we can keep that average going, that'll be the challenge, right? So was it about winning momentum-wise? Maybe. But again, the characteristics had to match. Otherwise, that part wouldn't have mattered anyway.
Ross, you've heard this term a million times, but
go ahead, Tim. One more.
Yeah, the idea that some schools are football schools and some schools are basketball schools. What is your take on that?
Look, if we're going to have a sport, let's win, and let's compete at the highest level, right? And make sure we have the right people, the right kind of resources. So that's how I look at it. Do we know that football is the economic engine? Absolutely. Do we know that there are super high expectations? Absolutely. I think one of the things I commented on, right, in my press conference was the importance of football. We get all that. That doesn't mean we have to minimize. Women's ice hockey is going to the Final Four. We have teams that are ranked in the top 5. We have teams winning championships here. If we have it, we're going to compete at the highest level and make sure that the resources are there. Basketball brings, I think, a different element. Look what the women's team has done, to the community, to the athletic department, to the university. If you're competing in March and April, it brings a lot of attention, and so we want basketball. We want to maximize this building. We want to maximize people coming to this. So that's why basketball is important.
Thanks, Ross.
Thanks,
guys.